I've been sitting on this one for a little while. I've been meaning to make this video about Cosmodread for quite some time now, and all that has held me up has been a lack of time. Cosmodread is made by the guys who also made Dread Halls, which is a dungeon crawling type game, except it's all about hiding and staying away from the horrible creatures whilst trying to collect as much loot as you can before being killed horrifically. In Cosmodread, you have weapons and you collect resources to build things, but you can fight back from the horrible creatures which are going to cause you a horrific death. So that's one step up, I suppose. Essentially, you get into a pod, you launch yourself at the ship, and then you're in a first-person dungeon crawler, but it's a roguelike. So you'll die. You'll die time and again as you explore and trying to find your way all the way through. And I haven't actually found my way all the way through and accomplished all of the goals along the way. What I found was you start out, you collect resources, you'll get some initial weapons, you'll plug some batteries into walls, you'll avoid a few bad guys, but then you'll end up in a central atrium, basically, with a bunch of other exits going off of it. And those will all go to different places, and you'll have like goals, things that you need to accomplish, like get the bridge up and running, fix the power supply, and that sort of thing. And essentially, you're working towards them while collecting more resources, bringing them back, and putting them into what is essentially a great big 3D printer to make more stuff, be it armor or weapons or what have you. Given that it was a roguelike, I died like a whole bunch of times. The twist on the roguelike here, maybe not twist, I've seen it before, but the element it throws in here is every time you play through, you unlock something. You might unlock, say, a modifier to the game where every monster turns into, just one type of monster, one of the hardest types that is to kill. Now, talking about the monsters, there's all sorts of creatures. There's one that basically has a giant mouth in its stomach with all teeth in it. That one's pretty cool. Every time it makes the lights flicker, and every time the lights flicker, it sort of jumps from place to place. And then all the rest of them after that look like Doctor Who monsters from the 70s and 80s. A collection of sort of foam and molds and giant eyes and stalks sticking out everywhere in a vaguely humanoid shape. And they're kind of dreadful and only scary in the fact that you're being overwhelmed by giant Doctor Who monsters while in VR. I was killed horribly by these once or twice, and I didn't know where they all came from. There was some through a door, I killed them, and another one had turned up, and then I was taking care of them, and then suddenly there were a whole bunch behind me where they hadn't been before, and I had explored all the area behind me. So I'm sure that there was a reason for all of this, but I couldn't work it out. And that was incredibly frustrating. Look, dying a lot was also frustrating, but it is a roguelike, and I kind of got into the vibe. I got onto the treadmill, you might say. I'd go through, I'd work some stuff out, I'd die, I'd come back, and I'd be, you're in another ship, except this ship is of a different layout. You find your way into this central atrium that I talked about, and then you start working from there. So every time you go into the map, it's randomized. Okay, it's a fun game. The combat is okay. The monsters are pretty garbage. There's a few what felt like unfair ones, like a vent suddenly pops off and a tentacle comes out. But I think once you know that they're there and how they work, you work out how to work with them. Overall, I enjoyed Cosmodread. It was a nice atmosphere. It worked quite well. Like the VR stuff did work quite well. Or you're picking things up and you're loading things and holding stuff, all quite smooth and worked quite well. Really limited sized inventory, which annoyed me a little bit. But the thing is, it does make sense. You do kind of want that inventory panic where do I take this thing or do you not take this thing? Because that's real life. You can't just pick up everything you see during the day and shove it in your pants and hope for the best. So that was all good. I'd call it a game that I enjoyed and a game that perhaps I'd play again. And if I had to pay money for it, I wouldn't buy it. And that's about all there is to say about that. One thing it did get me thinking about, and I'm going to completely segue off into something different here, reminded me not at all of Soma, but it got me thinking of the horror game Soma, which I loved. And I started thinking, what happens when we go to sleep? How do we know we awake as the same consciousness? Could there be a backup stored? And a web of memory and experience that this draws upon to be you when you wake up again. So basically rebuilding you. But it's a new copy each time because the old one is only maintained in state while you're awake. Essentially, this backup is you. It's the central core you that interprets and it reacts based on memory and experience. Essentially, it would be no different if an entire brain could be losslessly copied to digital form and then turned on. It would be another you, only one you couldn't access and whose cores and memory would update independently. Similarly, today's you cannot access yesterday's you, but it will still be a copy of you. The digital you cannot access the you that exists in your brain now, but it is still you. The only difference going forward is, as above, the new memories and experience that are no longer shared between iterations of you. Also, the digital you doesn't need to sleep. Or would it need to sleep? Is the destruction of today's you necessary for some reason? Is a reboot mandatory? Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the video. Please, honestly, if you've watched it and you thought this was interesting, give me a like, because the engagement across the video really helps me out. Similarly, if you thought it was garbage, click the dislike. It's still an interaction. It's important to know if I'm doing good or bad. Lastly, but not leastly, if you've enjoyed any of my videos, please make sure you subscribe. Like, I strongly encourage you to do that over anything else, because it means that then you know when I put something else out. But anyway, that's all from me. I'll be back with something else again in the future. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you're having an excellent day, and that tomorrow is even better than today. And if maybe it's not for some reason, that tomorrow or the day after or next week will be better. And I will speak to you again soon. Goodbye. Oh, it's rechargeable. Oh no, what do I do? I think we open the door. He's got a butt. Oh god, and they don't die very easily. And I'm stuck. And that doesn't really stop them. What a horrifying gun. Yes! Why is there another one? Ah! Oh my god, there's two more. Where did they come from? Gavel's dead.